The Museum Roadshow is brought to you by 125 Apparel.
Thank you, Becky. And thanks to Emily for putting the exhibit together. We were really pleased with it. And I hope some of you take a few minutes to look at it and maybe read some of the information that is there. Cletus and I are very happy to be here, and we welcome all of you. I know there was a storm yesterday that some people are cleaning up from, and we just left our mess right there and left. We didn't have any trees fall down, however. I have the easy part today. How many of you have been to one of our earlier presentations? Two? Okay. All right, I was thinking, well, it would be real easy if all of you had been to one, but I decided to complete this because Becky said that David said this would be his first presentation. I've given many, but each one makes me nervous, so I hope it won't be too bad today. Okay, so I'm going to review some of the history when Minnesota woman was discovered. And I hope I have this right. Yes. She was discovered on June 16, 1938. So that was 86 years ago. I think that's might be right. And just about right now. And here's the 14th, and she was discovered on the 16th. It was quite a historical adventure. At that time, where Highway 59 is now, was Trunk Road 30, and it was a gravel road, and Trunk Road 30 over the winter had gotten some frost boils, which meant that it was difficult to travel, all right? So they had the graders out there and all the highway workers, the repairmen, and you might like to know that most of them were from Detroit Lakes. So we have a lot of interest because of the road workers that were there. In fact, some of their descendants are still here, and we've talked with some of them and trying to get their stories. Carl Steffen was one of the road workers, and we've interviewed a man who was one of his neighbors at the time and learned more about Carl. And in the Fargo Forum some years ago, there was a wonderful article about him that told about his gladiolas that he grew on his property. Well, he was the perfect man to have working on the crew that day, although at the time this all happened, he wasn't actually working. He was walking beside the grader, the truck. And Carl saw something white and shimmering in the clay, or the gray silt, the yellow clay, I guess we call it in Pelican Rapids. Some of backwards, I knew I was going to do that. So, Stefan, being intrigued by what is that shimmering stuff in the soil, went over to check it, and he started digging around with his hands and came upon a clam and found out that the grater blade had hit this clam and shattered it. And that's what was causing the shimmer. It was a very sunny day at the beginning, and the sun shone on that clam. He cleared away the silt and clam shells and was digging down, and all of a sudden he came upon a skull, and he pulled the skull out. And it was quite interesting because one of the truck drivers came and he says, I'll get rid of those. The truck drivers had earlier that day been out to the gravel pit, and they had found two other skeletons. So this was slowing them down, and they needed to get their work because they wanted to earn their 30 cents an hour that they were making at the time. So Stefan, who was very, very meticulous, and we learned that from one of his former neighbors that we interviewed. He was a very meticulous man, so he was the perfect man to discover the skeleton. He took the skeleton and the bones, and then with the help of some of the other workers, they placed the bones on the side of the road, and they laid them out in anatomical order so that they were truly all kind of together as a skeleton would be. And at that time, they realized the extreme importance of this skeleton that they had located. Dr. Jennings, who was the archaeologist at the time working, he had sent out a letter to the superintendent of the highway maintenance in Detroit Lakes, and had said this had gone through all his university connections, so the letter actually came from the dean, I believe. But he had this premonition that they would be finding some old and ancient bones in the area, that it was ripe for the finding. And so their superintendent had told the road boss and communicated it to all the workers to be on the lookout for a skeleton. And here they had found the skeleton. Along with the skeleton, they found this, what they call the dagger. And being more of a social scientist, Lisa is the natural scientist, the microbiologist, etc. I said, no, that isn't a dagger, that is a scraper that a woman would have used, because she'd be with her skins maybe and cleaning the hides, and it would be a scraper. Was sharp on both sides, and this is, I don't know which is the front and which is the back. Do you please? Anyway, the front and the back, and you will see there's a hole that had been drilled in it, and that's where they would have had probably their rawhide cord that would have connected it onto a bag, or how they carried it, however it was. And this shows on the left where the early scientists that were working with the discovery cut off some of the dagger, the scraper, the knife. And that was used in some of the testing that they did, because they really did want to find out more information through chemical testing and different kinds of carbon testing. And this then is the anatomy of what it was in its original shape, because the point was broken off. And there's some, lots of us have thought about why that particular artifact was broken, and she was in the lake, what had been Pelican Lake Glacier Lake, and probably fell through the ice and drowned, and that's what some of the researchers say. And maybe was trying to get out with her knife and the tip broke off. We don't know, but that's one of the thoughts. Along with that, she had a whelk shell. And the whelk shell is found in the south, in the Gulf of Mexico. And we've speculated, why would she have had a whelk shell with her? Was it here because of the trade that their clan may have done with people from the south? Or was it that they were migrating? And perhaps the shell was used to communicate to others. It has a lovely sound when you blow into it, or it would have originally. And other artifacts besides the clamshell, there was a turtle carapace, a metatarsal of a young loon, the toe bones of a medium-sized bird's foot, a wolf's first upper right sizer, and the heel bone of a rodent, perhaps a muskrat. And we always think about, why did she carry all of these? And some people have thought, well, maybe she was a medicine woman and used these different artifacts. We don't know why she had them. Now, the procedures that were used with this first discovery of Nimue, as I mentioned, the state highway maintenance Superintendent P.F. Sterry had been notified. He called the university then, when he was notified by the road crew that they had made this discovery, and they requested that a faculty member come out. Well, the archaeologist on staff at that time was working in New Mexico on a project and wouldn't be back for about 11 months. So they sent a geologist out, and he then was given permission to transport the skeleton back to the university. Everything was documented in the diary of Clarence Wright, one of the road workers. And that has been most helpful. As we have done our research, we came upon his letters and his diary, had the opportunity to read all the things he wrote down at the time this all occurred. And so the skeleton was prepared for transport to the university. Unfortunately, it rained that night and they couldn't take it until the next day. And she had been laid out along the side of the road, and she was filled with silt. And some of the bones disappeared on the side of the road. They say she was complete when they found her, but then a tooth was missing and a couple of ribs and so forth. So that was all documented by Mr. Wright. And so off she went on the 17th day of June to the university, and no further analysis was done until March 21st of 1932. So a lot of time had passed. And we know that when you take something out of something like this sand that she was buried in, the silt, and then she's exposed to sunlight and different things that it could affect her.
The Museum Roadshow is brought to you by 125 Apparel.